Okay, good. So everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear us loud and clear. Good, we're ready to go. Welcome, everyone. Really lovely to see you here. This is the second webinar we've run in this series, with the last one being the New Year Reset, where we had a look at how to stay grounded in public speaking. It was lovely. And this one is very much around preparation. And again, Beth and I, some of you know us, we both run the twice yearly intensives and work together in this space. This is about preparing you, your content, and your voice. So in this, we'll be covering the practical pieces as well as the personal pieces. We'll have about an hour that we'll be working together today, and we're going to keep it super practical and interactive. So what are we going to cover today? A little bit of signposting. So we'll start by having a look at, well, it's useful to have a purpose. So why is it important to be prepared? Okay, what's the why behind this? We're speaking up in various situations, whether it's team meetings, big pitches, investor pieces, or even just kind of like standing up to say a few things. It's important to be prepared, but it's good to understand why. Then we'll move into the practical piece, how to be prepared. So how do you prepare your content and delivery? How to prepare your nervous system. This is really, really big. And I know that a lot of folks who work in this space as public speaking coaches, they kind of ignore the nervous system part. And they think it's all about, okay, let's just kind of like drill it and do all the exposure stuff really, really hard. And that can actually lead us the other way. We want to kind of come to it from a slightly more compassionate and understanding space. So as you'll see, a feature of these is a lot of work with the nervous system. And those who have been on our intensive, you would have kind of seen this as well. We're then going to have some activities where you get to start to integrate some of the practical stuff that we've looked at today. And then hopefully, if we have time at the end as well, a little bit of a Q&A with Beth and I, and some signposting of where to go next. Everyone with me? Should we move on? Good. Okay. We've got a good number of people, and I think all the Matthew Mathesons have renamed themselves to the right people now, which is good. So, why being prepared matters. Why is it important to be prepared? And, alongside what I'm writing here, I'd encourage you all to just drop into the chat. Why do you think being prepared matters? Let's have a look at what you say quickly as well. Why do you think being prepared to speak under pressure matters? And drop that into the chat. Okay, so it keeps my brain and thinking contained. Yeah. Eases pressure on your nervous system. Absolutely. Great to see you, Jess. You can relax more, Clarissa. Yeah, it gives you focus and flow. Confidence, absolutely really important. Focus. Preparation is the keys of confidence. I love that. I should get that on a t-shirt. Nicola Davies feels more relaxed. Practice, ability to test the timing and pace. Yep, absolutely. Good. So some themes I think already starting to emerge from what we're saying here, and it speaks to what you can see on screen here. When you're prepared, you feel in control. Okay. And when you're not prepared, you don't, and your nervous system takes control. All right. Being in control builds around patterns, builds familiarity for your nervous system. And when you feel in control of something, you feel less like you're going to go off the rails. Okay. And it's not just your content, and it's not just your body, and it's not just your environment. I want you to try and see these almost as three pillars, if you like. So your message, your body, and your environment all need preparation. And I see this over and over and over and over again. Often people focus on one without thinking of the other, and then they wonder why things don't go well. Okay. Your message, your body, and your environment. So externally, preparation really practically helps you control your message, and it helps you control your appearance, how people see you, which is really important. We're very much being exposed and seen in this space, aren't we? Talking of that, I seem to be really dark at the moment. The level of risk. You can control the level of risk. And I always say risk is two-sided. There's external risk. Okay, so this is a PR impact, how people will perceive you, whether you win the deal, all those kind of pieces. But then there's internal risk. This is your nervous system piece as well, okay? Impact and results, whether you do a good job or not. I see this so much in work as people autopiloting into different presentations with different ways, constantly with different results showing up every time. That's because there's no pattern that is defined here, okay? And then finally, your personal growth as a speaker. Whether you think yourself as this or not, you are all speakers. We are all speakers because it is through our voice and our body that we get our message across to other people. Okay. So for the areas that matter, we should be ready for it. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up, everyone with us so far. Good. Internally, we've got to think about this as well. Beth, I'm going to lead you in here if that's okay.
Yeah, great. So I bang on about this stuff all the time. My business is basically about teaching people how our biology impacts our daily experience and how we can work with it. And it's all this stuff and really understanding our nervous system. So, at the most basic level, preparation impacts our sense of safety in our nervous system. So, our nervous system is constantly scanning our environment and asking, am I safe? And preparation really increases the certainty and familiarity that enables our nervous system to feel safe. Our nervous system is basically all about predicting what's about to happen to us and reacting to what it thinks that is. So when we have prepared, it feels more familiar, it feels more certain. So that's the foundation, that felt sense of safety around public speaking. And everything else really comes from that. So our state then, when your nervous system feels safe, that's when you are really calm and grounded. We did a whole webinar on this. Our first webinar was all about that, how to do public speaking from a really calm and grounded state. When we don't feel safe, that's when we tip into a more activated state, when we start to feel stressed and overwhelmed, and then that then impacts everything else, particularly our focus and our mental clarity. Because when we're activated, our thinking narrows. All of our focus is going on what do I need to make myself safe, not what is my message and what have I planned to say and how did I plan to say it. So that's where we might go blank or forget what it was we were about to say. So that's how our state influences our focus and mental clarity. Then our emotional response. So preparation doesn't get rid of nerves. I came through this work with Matt because I did his 6-point speaker program because nerves was a huge thing for me. Those nerves haven't disappeared completely, but I experienced them really differently. And my emotional response to those nerves is different. I understand what they are. I know how to manage them and respond to them. So that really changes everything. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, we're more able to notice what's happening and stay with it. And then presence and connection. As we discussed last time, your ability to connect with your audience is really what makes you engaging to listen to. And if you're in an activated state, you're much less able to connect with your audience. So that's the final part of it. So all this, what we're talking about today, the preparation isn't at all just about what you're going to say. It's also about the state you're going to say it from. Okay. Why that has such an impact then. So as I said, your nervous system's constantly scanning your environment for threats, and it works based on prediction. So if your nervous system's uncertain about what's about to happen, it will respond to that as a threat. So preparation addresses that in lots of different ways, but it increases familiarity so that your biology feels like, oh, I've been here before and I'm fine. It reduces unknowns, so you're not having to worry about what might be about to happen, the things that you haven't prepared for, which again, your nervous system can react to as a threat. It likes certainty rather than unknowns. It builds that sense of control so that you know you've at least taken control of the things you can control, and it really signals that safety to the nervous system. So all of that is what we're doing through preparation, which really shapes our performance on the day.
Thank you. So I guess with the why being in place here, the context and the background, we can start to move into the how. So we've got a number of things that we want to share with you today. You know, how to prepare your body, your message, and your nervous system, as we have spoken about. And there's a few things that we'd like to share with you today, all with the goal, and the language I've been using around this recently is the idea of creating patterns. Okay. Creating patterns for your nervous system, patterns in how you work out your content, patterns in how you manage your environment, patterns in how you use your body. Once we have patterns, we come right to the heart of what Beth's talking about here, which is familiarity for the nervous system, predictability. So with patterns, you have predictability. With predictability, you have a more balanced nervous system. With a more balanced nervous system that's within your window of tolerance, as Beth would say, you are able to perform at your best. Okay, so we come away from unplanned, scatty, chaotic, or kind of heading into things on autopilot when we start to develop patterns. So the whole point of these webinars and the work Beth does with her clients in the one-to-one space, the work that I do, what we do in our intensives, is giving you patterns, personalized patterns. So we're going to have a look at a few things. We're going to look at how to prepare content and starting big picture rather than detail. We're going to have a look at the potter's wheel. We're all going to play with a lump of clay, or at least I'm going to show you how to do it. Might have a moment thinking about some of the common traps that come up, the importance of your first minute, and then thinking about your nervous system. So see these as patterns, things that you can take and start repeating so that you build that familiarity when the stakes are high. So the first thing to say is, let's have a think about the mindset that we need to come to presenting and speaking under pressure with. And we've got two types of mindsets here, okay? So we have a fixed mindset and then we have a growth mindset. And these are two different ways of operating, neither are right or wrong, but which we choose to adapt in the different situations in our life will lead to different outcomes. If we bring a situation down to presenting, speaking up, moving into a challenging conversation, standing on a stage in front of 150 people delivering a TED talk, or being on a webinar with a bunch of people who arrive and because of an error that I made, the half of them have got the name Matthew Matheson beforehand. There's a couple of ways I could come into this. Okay, ready to speak. I could either come into this from a fixed mindset approach. The headline for fixed mindset means it's only going to go one way, it's got to go my way, otherwise it's the highway and it goes wrong. Okay. The other way I could come into it is a growth mindset way, which is like, okay, I'm open to it maybe changing based on how I feel, what happens, whether six people take my name when they arrive on the Zoom call, or the fact that I might want to pivot and adjust my content a little bit based on what someone says in the group. And that's a more growth mindset approach. When you're communicating to people, there's more than one other person at play, so you need to go into a growth mindset place. With a fixed mindset place, this shows up as writing a detailed script, telling you there's only one way to get it right, not able to take on board feedback, easily thrown off because of that, and it's very rigid. When you come to a growth mindset point of view, this is, well, let's be big picture. Let's work out what we want to achieve, but be a bit more flexible about how we get there. We're open to feedback, even if it might feel strange, and we're relaxed. Talking of growth mindset and being flexible, there's a good chance that there's someone who's 7 years old going to wander through the door in a minute, but we're going to roll with it if that happens. First thing I'd like to share with you is a framework for how to prepare for any public speaking gig. And we'll share this afterwards, so don't worry too much about the detail on the slides. So I'm going to give you the principles. Let's say you're asked to speak. Okay, so this is a pattern here for how to prepare for something as small as a catch up or as big as a TED talk. Let's say that you're asked to speak at a presentation somewhere. Hold on, JK, I'm just on a call. Let's say you are asked to deliver a presentation somewhere. The first thing we should do is we should answer 3 questions on a piece of paper. I say index cards are great because you can move them around. We give it a title. So let's say I'm asked to speak at an event in 3 weeks about coaching. I come down and I say, what could the title be? Maybe I call it the future of coaching. So wet cement here, yeah, guys, nothing hard, fixed mindset growth. Second question I ask, what's the key takeaway? What I mean by that is, let's say Jez and Matteo and Clarissa and Yvonne and Claire all came to see me this event in a couple of weeks. And then I finished saying what I was saying, and they went next door into a cafe and they said, "Oh, you're in Matt's presentation. What was that all about?" What's the one thing that has to cut through? Your key takeaway. Okay. So for that, if I was talking about the future of coaching, I might say AI is going to change the coaching world. What's the big hero message that you've got to cut through? And then number three, how do I want people to feel? Okay. And this is an emotion, not a statement. We're not saying I want them to feel like they want to do this thing. So that's a statement. Okay. That's more takeaway area. I want them to feel confident, sad, angry, frustrated. What's the vibe you want to create that you start to bring out in how you speak, what you say, and the content? And then possible fourth question, is there an action? So if it's sign off on this thing or do this, get that up front as part of your hero planning rather than as an afterthought. How many webinars have you been in or pitches or whatever where the kind of request comes right at the end about what's going on? And it's a bit, oh, it's like, no, think about your goal up front. Those three questions, title, feeling, and takeaway, you can use to prepare for anything. So here's my challenge to everybody on this webinar and everybody who's watching the recorded version. For the rest of the day, for every single meeting that you're going into, grab a quick piece of paper before and take 30 seconds to give it a title, an identity for you. Think about the most important thing you want to get across, and then think about the emotional vibe that you want it to have and use that as a compass. See what it does. Create a pattern around that. Very simple. For the bigger gigs, you go to step two, where you brainstorm the possible topics you might want to include based on this umbrella you've just created, the title, the most important objective, the action, and how you want it to feel emotionally. So you start, so I might have future of coaching, background of coaching, a case study, brainstorm your topics. Okay. That then is going to give you a plethora of things that could possibly go into your presentation. Okay. And then you can start moving them around if you're using paper and start to plot a route through it. Okay. And you start to scamp out what you're doing. Everybody with me? Good. Here's the fun bit. And here's the bit that I'm going to pull a stat off of my head, which is qualitative rather than quantitative. I'm going to say about 70% of my clients miss this next bit. And this is the most crucial bit. Is they'll work out their content, or they might even create a script, even though I think it's better to go big picture, and then they think about it for weeks. Okay. Whereas actually, what you need to do is you need to get spinning. Okay. Now, if you've worked onto index cards with this, you're going to have a set of index cards in your hand. And I would say at this stage, get up and start rehearsing from your cards straight away before you created a PowerPoint. Okay. Now you've got a vision here. You have a lump of clay. You need to get spinning it. And something what I call a potter's wheel metaphor kicks in. You need to start shaping it. And what you'll notice in doing this is that the bits that you like, that sound good, will start repeating themselves, even though it comes out differently every time. And the bits that you don't like will fall to the bottom of the workshop floor, as it were. Okay. You shape what you want to say and how you want to say it through speech, not through thinking about it for weeks. Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where you spent weeks just tweaking a PowerPoint without actually ever getting into the body and giving it a go. Yeah, definitely. And give me a thumbs up or thumbs down for how it feels when you actually get to that point when you bring it into the body because you haven't prepped it. Yeah, it's strange. I call this somaticizing your content. On the day, you are going to be in your body verbalizing it. So you need to do that from the beginning. Don't bring it a long line at the end because everything you've got going in your head is never the same when it comes out here. So bring that online early. Okay. So you go through this process, you're running the potter's wheel, and you'll start to notice that shape emerges. Couple of rules to follow here, and these are cool get out of jail free cards that I want you guys to take as well to professionalize a little bit in how you speak. Number one, when you're doing this, you have to get to the end. And this doesn't mean if you've got a 30-minute presentation, you've got to do hours and hours and hours of wheeling, but give yourself the first minute or the first 5 minutes and get to the end so you feel you complete. Okay. Number two, has anybody ever been in a situation where they are presenting some content and then they go, Oh, I don't know what to say. Mind blank. Raise your hands if you've ever had that. Yeah, we've had mind blanks. Good. Here's what we're going to do from this point onwards. You're no longer going to see a mind blank as a problem. We're going to reframe it positively as a signal, a sign that you've said everything you need to say in that moment. Look at your points and move on. Okay, it's a sign to move on, not to stay stuck. Get comfortable with silence and sitting in the unknown for a couple of seconds, and you can deal with that stuff immediately. Okay, we move on. The third thing is you're going to have this little creature on your shoulder. And those of you who have worked with me know about this. I've got one as well. And it's probably going to look a little bit like a gremlin. And it's going to be whispering things into your ear. And it's going to say, as you're rehearsing, it's going to go, that didn't sound very good. You didn't get that right. Oh, people aren't going to like that. Oh, you really don't know your stuff. That's awful. Yeah. This is the gremlin. This is the inner critic. It's normal. Roughly 80% of us have kind of these voice processes that go on, particularly when we're at the edge of our comfort zones. And it's going to be there. All right. It's going to be there. The key to professionalization is we don't expose it. Okay. Exposing it looks like rehearsal, rehearsal. Oh, I got that wrong. I'm going to start again. And we actually bring it out. So we hold a muscle to not let that voice take over and we keep that kind of polish. That makes sense. A lot of people find it useful to name their gremlin, okay, to give it a bit of an identity. I have no idea why, but mine's called Pedro and has been for a while. It was also Percy at one point. It's obviously a thing with P's there. But yeah, he's here, he's with me, but he doesn't control me. So become at peace with it. It's part of your psyche, but don't expose it and don't let it call the shots. So coming back to the process, let's get a little bit helicopter view again. We've worked out our cards, we've got our topics, we've done some practice through the potter's wheel, maybe got some feedback from someone. How's this feel? And yes, at some point you may want to sit down, plug the gaps, create a PowerPoint, maybe some more practice, more feedback, and then deliver it. Okay, that'll create a really strong pattern for you around this presentation. And coming up another level, this framework could give you a pattern to use for all sorts of presentations. The first steps, what is it, Jakey? 1 second till you can get a little guess. I'm just on a call at the moment. Okay, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. I'll be there in a minute, okay? This can create a pattern for you. So 3 questions, title, feeling, takeaway. That's the gold dust bit. Branch it out into topics if you want to afterwards, and then review it, practice it, and perfect it, and see how it feels. I want to talk about your first minute briefly as well. Raise your hands if you can ride a bike. Okay, raise your hands if you can ride a bike. Cool. Raise your hands if you've been able to ride a bike since you were born. No, I was wondering if there might be 1 or 2 magic people here. Your first minute to public speaking is what balances to riding a bike, okay? You've got to learn how to balance before you'll get on your journey, okay? It's the apex of your nervous system, your environment, your content, any risk associated with it, the audience, a whole lot comes together in that minute. So that first minute, you want a really strong pattern around to the point where, you're kind of reeling it off in the shower without thinking, okay? If you're someone who likes metrics and you're a bit more of a planner when it comes to this kind of stuff, I would say practice your first minute 20 times in a row in a 30-minute calendar window. So you only need a half an hour to do that. But the goal being is you create a really strong pattern for your nervous system for that first minute. The adrenaline spike will come down quite quickly if you start strong, and then you'll be able to carry on riding on this glorious bike ride, showing everybody the scenery that you're taking them on. Okay, this makes sense? Good. So patterns are important. Patterns in how you prepare, patterns in how you rehearse, patterns for those crucial moments like the first minute, the action that you want to take, and crucially, patterns for our nervous system as well. So at this point, I'm going to ask Beth to come back online if that's okay. Talk us through this aspect. Just give me a shout when you want me to change the slide.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're basically building on what Matt has just shared. So what he's just shared, especially practicing that first minute, it's incredibly powerful for your messaging and your content, but it's also really powerful for your nervous system. And I just want to acknowledge that this stuff isn't easy at all. So our nervous system is super powerful. It influences literally every behavior, experience, decision we make. And we forget that because a lot of it's unconscious. And when something feels a bit stressful or scary and triggers that stress response in our body, we will do whatever it takes to make ourselves feel better again. So I definitely, in the past, when it came to public speaking, ignored it for as long as possible. So avoided it because that enabled me to not get stressed about it, pretended it wasn't happened, didn't prepare, and then right at the last minute, go to control freak mode, which again, both of those are trying to make me feel calm and safe. Neither of them really help. So just acknowledging that to start with. But we're just going to take a quick look at how these three different ways we can prepare our nervous system, and then one tool that kind of brings them all together that we can use. So we're talking about familiarity. So making the situation feel known and feel familiar to our nervous system and our biology. Control, focusing on the things we can influence rather than worrying about the things we can't. Our negativity bias tends to make us want to think about the worrying things, and that's not helpful. And then how we can prepare our state, because our body has a huge influence over our entire state and what our brain is thinking as well. So it's a two-way thing. So we need to work with the body as well as the mind. So just to have a really quick look at each of these. And then we'll, if we've got time, have a little practice with a tool that we can use. Okay, thanks, Mark. So familiarity, first of all. As I said, your nervous system is a bit of a prediction machine. So your brain is not interpreting a situation mainly from what's happening in the moment. It's interpreting what it thinks is going to happen. So the more familiar the situation is, the more that creates safety for us. So if our nervous system thinks, I've been here before, I know what to do, we're going to feel better. So an example for me there, I have a 2 hour training that I've developed about the nervous system and resilience and certain behaviors. And I have probably delivered that about 35 times now to start with. That was an ordeal. The other day, I delivered it to 40 junior doctors, stood on the stage, totally fine, because my body now knows, done this before, and it honestly feels like a different person. So that's what we're aiming for with familiarity. We're not just memorizing the words, we're teaching our nervous system that we've been here before. And there's some clever ways we can address that one. So then moving on to control. So I mentioned just now, we have this negativity bias that tends to make us want to worry about all the things that will go wrong. Evolution did that for a reason. It does make us prepare for things that could happen, but with public speaking, it's not useful. We want to be focusing our energy on the things we can control. So, as Matt said, the opening minute, our key message, our preparation, and our state, not how the audience might react if the tech goes wrong and all of those other sorts of things that we can't control. An example there for me, I delivered some training the other day for 46 formers, and I hadn't controlled the environment we were in. So they actually were in their common room, which is like sofas and the place they go to relax. And about three of them looked like they were asleep. That actually really triggered my nervous system because I instantly thought, wow, they must think I'm super dull and boring. And my mind went blank because of that. And where Matt shared earlier, fixed versus growth mindset, if I was in a fixed mindset, I could have stayed with that panic. Actually, I used it as an example and I said, the fact that I can now see some people asleep has triggered my nervous system. My mind has gone blank because so yeah, it was a helpful thing and it was an interesting one to experience. So focus on the things you can control. Don't let the things you can't become overwhelming. And then the third one, state. So most of us focus most of our preparation on what we're going to say, but actually our body leads our mind when we're up on the stage or sat in a meeting or doing a pitch or whatever it is. So if we can prepare our body to feel safe and grounded, our thinking is going to be much clearer. If our body feels under threat, that's when we're going to go blank and lose our flow. So the good news there is we can train our nervous system and we can practice for the state we want to be in advance. We don't have to practice in front of a huge audience in order to prepare our state to be in front of a huge audience. In some ways, we're just preparing that ground so that our biology can allow us to perform at our best. So if we move on to the next slide, we are going to try a little tool. How long have we got, Matt? Got time? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I work with a technique called havening, and we use this in the public speaking intensive and one-to-one work. it it combines with visualization. So if you think about professional sports people, footballers taking a penalty in a really high stakes match, sure, they can practice taking a penalty at training, and they've probably taken penalties in matches, but to actually be able to practice in front of all those people in a situation like, I don't know, a World Cup, you don't get that opportunity very much. And this is the sort of tool that they would use using visualization and imagination. Your nervous system can't really tell the difference between actually being in a situation and thinking about a situation. It reacts similarly to both. And that's really actually very useful because it enables us to imagine doing something and start to prepare our nervous system before we actually do it. So the thing with havening, it uses touch. Touch is one of the most primitive signals of safety for humans. So they've researched this, and when we use touch, we start to generate delta waves in our brain, which are the brain waves that we get when we're in deep sleep, really relaxed. So if we can start to visualize doing something at the same time as showing our body that we're safe, it's even more powerful. So there's two things that you might want to try while we do this. The first is to just put your palms together. I'm going to show you like this. So just rub your palms together like this. And the second is like a moving hug. So down from the tops of your shoulders to your elbows. Anyone who's been in the public speaking intensive, this will be familiar. You can use this though as a tool at home anytime. So what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to keep this going and close your eyes if you are comfortable doing that. And I'm just going to have us all settle. And then we're going to just imagine ourselves, choose a situation where you would like to be showing up differently and to practice your state in a public speaking context. And you're just going to imagine yourself there. I'm going to guide you through it. And we'll imagine your opening few words and the state you want to be saying them from. And we'll just do that a few times. This is like a really, really quick taster of something that you can go much deeper on or practice whenever you like at home. So if you're ready, just want to start the touch going. So hands or arms, and close your eyes and take a nice deep inhale. And then slowly breathe out. We'll do that a few times. And now just feel your feet on the floor or feel the seat, your back resting against the seat. Just really ground yourself where you are. And now, if you want to picture yourself in a situation where you might be delivering a talk or a pitch, don't choose a high stakes. So not racing forward 5 years to the TED talk, but something realistic, and just see yourself there in that situation. And just visualize how you're standing. See yourself calm, prepared, and just see your facial expression and how you're connecting with people in front of you, how they are looking back at you. You might see their faces looking back at you. And now imagine the best case scenario of you're introducing yourself and you're just the first few words of your talk, and see how confident and clear you are. You might want to actually imagine the words that you're saying. There's no wrong or right here. It's more about imagining the state that you're speaking from. And if you like, you can repeat that a few times. Might start to feel stronger each time. And now just connect with how you feel afterwards. You've come to the end of the presentation. And take a couple of deep breaths. And just, are there any words that would come up for how you're feeling? If there are, just notice those. Maybe repeat them for a few times. So might be, I am calm, I am happy, whatever your version of that is. Okay, and then if you're ready, you can just open your eyes. So that was just a really, really quick taster of something that you can use much more just to prepare yourself for all sorts of different things, not just public speaking, conversations, any performance related thing. Um, if any of you think that perhaps, fear of public speaking, we're not born with it, and fear of visibility, we're not born with it, we learn it. So if you have a sense that you learnt that at some point in your past, and there may be multiple occasions that you can think of, and it's all sorts of things, but you can also use that technique to go back and to work on those experiences as well. And it's really empowering for reprocessing those and kind of freeing ourselves from our past experiences can be impacting our experience now. So sometimes what we're reacting to now is actually based on an experience in the past. So we can go back to those experiences, reprocess them, and free ourselves from that, and then start to experience public speaking from a really different, new place, I would describe it. Hope that helped. And if anyone has any questions on that another time, feel free, but I'll hand back to Matt.
Thank you, Beth. Always good to just take a moment to pause like that. So we're going to give you guys a chance to have a conversation soon, but just want to recap patterns, patterns, patterns. So preparing your content, use the pattern of having cards, start big picture, then come into detail. To start preparing your body and your rehearsals, use the pattern of the potter's wheel over and over and over again, allowing it to fall out differently every time, letting shape emerge. The three traps of public speaking we didn't dive into, but be aware of putting too much energy into either overthinking the audience, overthinking your content, or overthinking how you're going to come across. Try to stay somewhere in the middle of that space. Think about a pattern for your peak moment, your first minute. Repetition will bring this about. And then think about those internal patterns and the nervous system as we've looked from Beth, as we heard from Beth. Like, I can't emphasize enough how powerful visualization is. Visualize success, not just getting through it. Okay, there's a key difference there. Create those patterns. So I'm going to ask you all to take 30 seconds just to jot down in front of you in whatever way feels right, which bits stood out for you. And then I'm going to pop you all into little breakout rooms, just to have 5 minutes conversation, exploring, what's one key takeaway and what one thing are you going to take from today that you're going to actually practically go and put into action. So the three cards, Julia, as you were asking as well. So first card is title, feeling, and takeaway. And then your next cards are topics. That's a pattern for preparing your content. Okay. So I'm going to open up some breakout rooms for you all, give you a chance to connect. We'll give you 5 minutes in the rooms so that you have a nice conversation. And we are going to create 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rooms, which will be, I think we'll do 7 rooms, 8 rooms, 2 to 3 people per room. Say hi, connect, and have a think about what one thing you're going to put into action. Those should now be open for you. I had them cleaned beforehand. Okay, I think everybody's made it in okay. Oh, Jez, I'm going to move to room 7 quickly.
Was he in room 6?
He was in room 8.
Okay, I've been asked to join room 6. Is anyone on their own?
That's okay. There's 2
Okay,
people
great.
in there. I think that's fine. Yeah, cool.
Is there someone still here not in a room?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Everyone's allocated from what I can see. Um, we've got maybe one person who's not joined. I think we're okay. Good. think, yeah, we'll actually have a bit of space for a Q&A, I think, in the run up to 1 o'clock. So we'll do the signpost before we move into the Q&A.
Are you
Uh,
going to ask people to put their one thing in the chat?
I'm going to ask people to put one thing in the chat, and then I'm going to signpost, and then I'm going to ask you to drop your details in as well, so that you can drop your LinkedIn so people can connect with you there. And then we'll move into a Q&A. Okay, should I close the rooms now? About 5 minutes, wasn't it?
Maybe give them a 1 minute warning.
I think. Yeah, it usually does a minute warning. I'll do a broadcast. Okay, welcome back. You'll just wait for everybody else to join back. They'll be back within 30 seconds. Conversation must be good because they're not jumping back straight away. Okay, 10-second countdown. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we're approaching 10 minutes to the hour, so we're going to start landing things for you all. I hope that your rooms were tidy and comfortable and suitably warm and well lit. What I'd love to hear from everybody at this point is if you're happy to just drop into the chats, what's the commitment that you've made? What's the thing that you're going to try out differently? What did you share? So reflection around what you're going to take forward, and let's see what comes up in the chat, and then we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A. So practice out loud. Yes, somaticize that content. Get away from scripting. That's it. Doing the potter's wheel on my pitch. Good luck with that, Paul. Less scripting, yeah. Big picture, and then let yourself naturally fill in the detail rather than starting with the detail. Practice the first minute 20 times. Yeah. Great. We've got experimental visualization. Remember to actually practice the havening process rather than just think it. Yeah. Seeing mind blats as a positive. Absolutely. And just be okay with sitting in silence for a few seconds so that you can name that that's happened and move on. It doesn't have to be a panic moment at all.
The scripting one's interesting because I still sometimes do that. Even this webinar today, we haven't run this before. So I actually started with a script, recorded it on a voice memo, listened to it while I was out with a walk, and then left it. So it doesn't have to be just boom, no script. It can be a bit of a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say there's a line, and some people are kind of at the security of a word by word script, and then we've got the more natural improvised approach. Generally speaking, I find scripts log you down, but some people need to start from that space to then be able to move over to this space by removing. And I would say if you're in this kind of hard script area, find a safe space to practice going right the way over here, And then depending on the risk level of whatever you've got coming up, operate within the middle based on what feels good. But ultimately, you want to be getting yourself to a point where you know what you want to say, but you're not holding on too tightly to exactly how you say it, which is how we speak in daily life. We know we want to order a pizza, or we know that we just want to respond to the question that's like, and it just comes naturally. And that's what we need to cultivate in how we speak professionally as well. Okay, good. So I'm going to do a little bit of signposting for us here, and then we're going to move into a Q&A. So we'd like to give a little shout out for I think it's our sixth intensive we've got coming up in October, where we're going to be covering all of this with a team of four, 3 days, all inclusive. In October at the beautiful Florence House. We've got a few people here who've joined the intensive actually. We will look at patterns right the way across the board, the nervous system preparation, loads of practice, gorgeous, yummy food, really psychologically safe space. It's limited to 12 people with 4 facilitators. 3 spaces have been grabbed. So if you're curious, scan the QR code. You can have a read and then have a chat with me or Beth about it if you're curious. There's also a WhatsApp community that is growing. Wow, it's really growing. We're at 60 people now, but it's not too busy, which is a space where myself and Beth and previous and current clients and partners share their challenges really around public speaking. You're all welcome to join as you've been here. I'll follow up with a link to that on the email that will go out with the recording. And we'll be continuing this webinar series probably in June. The next one will be. I'm going to ask Beth if you could drop your LinkedIn into the chat window as well, just so people can connect with you where you are as well. And I know Beth's around if you need any conversations or want to follow up on any of the stuff that she's done.
Yeah, I've
Um,
also just dropped a link to my webpage on havening techniques. If anyone does feel that they would like to go deeper on that issue that perhaps lives in the past around public speaking, have a look at that.
great. So with that, I'm going to stop recording and allow us 5 minutes for some open conversations and questions if anyone's got them. And it's been great. And thanks for everybody who's logged on to the recording to watch.